Hey, what locked you in as a Ram fan? I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView.
It's hot out there, but let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Headline, Los Angeles.
Live from the Ram Cave. Live from the Ram Cave. I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView, the May 24th, 2023 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident, need help, got questions, call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word. KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair, having some auto issues, get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. So we are back. We have come back from the Monday episode to the Wednesday episode, and there hasn't been a whole lot of stuff happening. Again, other news is breaking, and so people have been asking me. They have not been asking me to stay in my lane. That's the issue here. They have not been asking me to stay in my lane. I will stay in my lane, but it is called RamView FanView. And so a couple of things that came up that my opinion was asked upon, and I love it. So I keep hearing that LeBron James is calculated and the smartest guy in the room, right? But then when he deliberately drops some kind of hint of retirement, I'm being told concurrently at the same time that he's the smartest, most well-calculated guy in the room, also being told that he's just human and he didn't mean anything when he dropped the retirement hint after the Lakers got swept by the Nuggets. And I don't know. To me personally, I think it was calculated. The conversation would continue to swirl around him. Narcissistic much. And honestly, for his teammates' sake, let them absorb what they accomplished this year. Sit back and let a week or two pass. If somebody asks you a question about retirement, say, hey, you know what, man? This is a tough loss, a lot of emotions this season. I became the scoring champion. We weren't supposed to make the playoffs. We made the playoffs. There's so many ways to deflect that. And a guy that's been interviewed millions of times would know how to do that. This is another reason I'm just not a LeBron fan. I thought it was somewhat selfish. And I guess Charles Barkley came out, and that's where my question came from a friend. Barkley thought it was terrible when they should have been talking about the Nuggets. And yeah, you could be talking about the Nuggets. You could be talking about the Heat. You could be talking about the Celtics. You could be talking about, hey, you accomplished a lot this season, but let's give your teammates an opportunity to catch their breath and appreciate the moment. And instead, you turn it all about you. So yeah, I thought it was a bit narcissistic on LeBron's case. And also, again, before we get to football, the question was put to me because, as I've shared with you, my day job is I do pastor a small church, and someone said, what do you think about the Sisters of Indulgence being invited back to Dodger Stadium? And yeah, my personal opinion, which could be anybody's personal opinion, not the fact that I'm an ordained elder or minister. Don't go. If you don't want to go, don't go. If that's the choice for the Dodgers, I'm sure families and Catholics will make other choices, and they rightfully should. It's their right. And to call them bigoted and hate mongers and stuff, the Dodgers are hating, and the Sisters of Indulgence are hating right back, and they began the hate fest. So you don't have to put up with anything. Also, as a believer, when you watch what the Sisters of Indulgence do, can I just tell you, it doesn't hurt my feelings. That's the great thing about Christianity. You don't want to see any Bibles burned. You don't want to see the cross mocked. But you know what? It's not my problem. The tomb is still empty. Jesus is off the cross, and my salvation is okay. So if that's what they do, that's what they do. But they're not hurting me. I think they're hurting themselves. So that's my opinion on that. And if you don't want to go to a Dodger game, don't go to a Dodger game. All right? But they're not hurting me. Or a believer. And so there, you got my opinion. Looking around the league and everything, I was watching some stuff on the Rams and the OTAs and everything. A lot of fun to watch. You see the Stetson Bennett pass to Sam Jones. And, you can't help but watch these highlights and get just pumped. You just want more and more football. And I was watching that, and the thought hit me, especially where the Rams are ranked this year, and then where Matthew Stafford's ranked. PFF has Matthew Stafford ranked number 12 overall of the 32 starting quarterbacks. And the guys that are in front of him are a little questionable. And we'll get into that on the other side of the break. But, someone like a Stafford, 14 years in, 15 years in, such a professional, does he need a chip? Do you need a chip on your shoulder? I know for a fact that I operate better with a chip on my shoulder. When I got a chip, when I think someone's discounting me, when I think someone is rolling their eyes at me, from the first time I said I wanted to write, from the first time I said I feel like I'm being led to preach, from the first time someone found out I was writing a book, I've always had the people roll their eyes at me. Not everybody, but I've always had people roll their eyes at me. And at one level or another, we all have. And I got to tell you, when someone doubts me, that's when there's no days off, there's no minutes off, there's no seconds off. I'm going to beat you. I am, as I've been prone to say, I am a spiteful person, and I will cut off my nose to spite my face if it means I can beat you in what you've declared about me. If I can disprove you, I will go to the nines. I will lose money on a situation just to prove that you were wrong. And so at 14 years, does Matthew Stafford need a chip? And that's what was going through my head. And I got to imagine that even if nobody puts it there, I imagine he heard all the whispers and stuff where people thought, hey, maybe this is it for Stafford. But if you see him, he really took this offseason pretty seriously. This isn't a guy going through the motions. He looks like he's in great shape. You hope the arm holds up and everything. And if the Rams get another playoff run, and it's hard to say they're going to get one this year, where the offense might be there, but the defense won't be. Maybe on the back half, maybe if a few things break their way, they can close in on 9 to 10 wins. Maybe at 9 to 10 wins in the NFC does put you in the wild card hunt. It would be great to see Matthew Stafford have another run. Because once you get into the playoffs, hey, anything could happen. Let's look at some NFL news real quick right here around the NFL. I love talking quarterback stuff. Josh Johnson, man, 37 years old, signed with his 14th different organization. Josh Johnson now is with the Ravens. He was with the 49ers last year. I found myself when he got in the game, when Brock Purdy got hurt, I thought, oh man, this is a movie script. Josh Johnson, after all these years, is with a great team, and maybe he's the one that leads the 49ers back to the promised land, and it could be this great journey story, underdog 2 and all that kind of stuff. But apparently, no. Eagles had other ideas, and Josh Johnson got bounced. Josh Johnson has played for the Ravens, the 49ers, the Browns, the Bengals, the Jets, the Colts, the Giants, the Texans, the Raiders, the Redskins, the Lions, the Broncos, the Buccaneers, and the Bills. I would almost be more interested in interviewing him than I would Patrick Mahomes, because a guy like that, man, that is what the world needs, is somebody that knows how to grind when somebody else has told him no. That's a guy that I think operates with a chip. I think that's pretty cool. The word is that Brock Purdy will be ready on opening day. Okay, that's fine. If he's ready opening day, that means he would be ready for week 2 against the Rams. The one thing is that about Brock Purdy, against Raheem Morris's defense, he scares me. When you give him a 8 to 10 yard cushion to throw to his receivers, yeah, Colt McCoy scares me when that kind of stuff happens. But the truth is that it'll be interesting to see the next go around, just like in baseball. The next go around, now that there's video on you, how do defenses play you differently? Now, the Rams are always playing the same way, it seems, but most defenses adjust, most defenses adapt, and they don't run the same defense they were running 2 years before, 3 years before. They do offer some changes in it. They do put some change ups and glitches and change things around a little bit, disguise it a little bit better. If I sound snarky, yeah, I'm a snarky Ram fan when it comes to the defense. But I do think there's going to be a book on Purdy, and I don't think it'll be as pretty as it was for Purdy last year. How's that for some alliteration? Okay, Davis Mills, the guy that I was honking for, that the Rams should make a trade for, that you would not only get your backup quarterback, but maybe even the guy that serves as the bridge until the next great quarterback comes along. The Houston Texans said that Davis Mills is not on the trading block. And DeMeco Ryans has said that Davis Mills, along with Case Keenum and CJ Stroud, are battling for the number one job. We know that's going to go to Stroud. We know maybe there's a week that maybe the first week he doesn't start, but I guess they're going to hold on to Davis Mills and maybe drive up his value a little bit, because I think he does have value. And yeah, I know I'm starting to get a little excited. Little Stetson in my coffee and my Kool-Aid. I'm starting to drink it a little bit. But I think I would rather still have Davis Mills. Lamar Jackson is praising his new offense and the opportunity it is to give him to throw the ball. And he said it, less running, more throwing. And that's great. That's really good for his career to continue, for the Ravens and everybody to get the maximum of 5 years, 260 rocks. LJ needs to throw the ball more. And it'll be interesting to see if they can change that offense from something that was completely tailored to him to something that's maybe a little more diverse. And you hope it works out for him, because the one thing about Lamar Jackson, you might not have liked all the holdout stuff and the contract talk and his mom being his agent and everything. Lamar Jackson plays hard. Lamar Jackson has improved, and you do want to see him do well. But watching Lamar Jackson really brought to mind former USC and later Raider quarterback Vince Evans. If anyone remembers Vince Evans, man, Vince Evans was a hyper athletic quarterback with a cannon of an arm. And you have to wonder, what would he have done if somebody built an offense around him the way they built it around Lamar Jackson? Now, Evans was a 6th round pick of the Chicago Bears in 1977 out of USC. Evans was horrible at USC in 75. He replaced Pat Hayden. That was John McKay's last year. John Robinson kept him at quarterback. He had a really good senior year. SC won the Rose Bowl, and he was drafted by the Bears. That was in 1977. So this is an interesting thing, especially when you talk about the black quarterback. Doug Williams was a 1st-round draft pick at Tampa Bay in 1978. And of course, we know Warren Moon was undrafted in 1978. And that has been chalked up because, he was a quarterback of color, that he was black. But, the Evans proved that teams will take quarterbacks. If they were black, they took him in the 6th round in 1977. So they took him in the middle rounds when he wasn't going to be the starter right away. He was going to have to beat out Bob Avellini and Mike Phipps. And then Doug Williams was taken in the 1st round. And so when I look at Warren Moon's situation, and that's what led me to follow this path, when I look at the Warren Moon situation on a slow Ram week in terms of breaking news, when I look at Warren Moon, I see less a discrimination aspect than a really bad evaluation. Is that there are people there that just didn't think he could be an NFL quarterback. And I think the stigma was already wearing off on black quarterbacks. It wasn't completely gone. I'm not saying that, but Doug Williams was drafted in the 1st round. Vince Evans proved you could be drafted in the middle rounds. The previous year of Williams, the same year Williams was drafted, Dr. Dave Mays started several games for the Browns. In 76, J.J. Jones started games for the Jets in New York. And so they were breaking out of that stigma. James Harris was the starting quarterback for the Rams in 76. And then he started the first half of the season in 77 for the Chargers until Dan Fouts ended his holdout. So the stigma was breaking down. Was it completely gone? No. And when I look at Warren Moon, as I considered Vince Evans, when I look at Warren Moon, I think someone just made a bad evaluation of him and didn't think he could play quarterback in the NFL. Maybe they didn't like his throwing motion. Maybe they just didn't like something. And he proved them wrong. Good for him. And was there some race involved? Maybe. But I also think it was probably just a really bad evaluation in light of the fact that black quarterbacks were already playing, black quarterbacks were going in the first round, and black quarterbacks were going in the middle round. And that one in the middle round, Vince Evans, he was a really good quarterback that never had anything built around him. Now, when he became starter at different times in Chicago and then later with the Raiders, he did start games. He struggled a little bit because he was playing in their offense. He was always great coming off the bench because teams, he was a change of pace quarterback. When he came off the bench, he was great. And he had that really nice, 8-year run with the Raiders. And stuff coming off the bench, third string, second string, occasional starter. But, he never had an offense built around him the way the Ravens built around Lamar Jackson. And that would have been really cool to see what would have happened with Vince Evans. And I actually met him when his son was playing high school football, and the dude must have been about 58, 60 years old at the time. And he was still in really, really great shape. Also, the NFL owners, before we go to break, NFL owners for this season only, it's not a complete change of the rules, but for this year for experimentation, fair catches on kickoffs and free kicks after a safety, that if the player fair catches inside the 25, the ball will be spotted at the 25. And they're citing player safety for this. And I understand it to one degree, but football comes with risk. It just comes with risk. And if you remove all the risk from football, it's not going to be football anymore. Okay. It's just not. All right. So we're going to take a break real quick here, and then we're going to come back and talk some Ram football and the dissing of Matthew Stafford. And then just the stuff that, man, what made you a Ram fan? What cemented you in as a Ram fan? And I'll share mine, and down the road, you could share yours. So I'm Joe Terosian. I was a sports writer for 21 years, and various newspapers, magazines, different websites and stuff. And I was one of the founding members of Mid-Valley Sports. Those guys, Dwayne and Tim, are still doing Mid-Valley Sports, and they're in the room with the Chargers. And I do RamView, thanks to our sponsors, Temple City Auto and KistlerLawFirm.com. And so we want to thank them for their support. I also do this, and I write books. Look at my books. These are my long books, right? Tangent Dreams, The Dead Bug Tales and Sin Virus. This is a high school football novel. These two are kind of dystopian Christian novels. Yes, I do have a day job. And I want to say thank you. Those of you that have purchased some of my books, some of you have, and I say thank you for that. But I've also written another high school football novel. And you can find all these on Amazon, looking up my name and such. But I do all this because my day job is as a pastor, and this supplements my income as a pastor. I pastor a small church in Burbank Nazarene, and you can find us here on YouTube at Burbank Faith Virtual, as well as our website, burbankfaithvirtual.com, and just type in Burbank Faith Virtual on Facebook, and you'll see us also on Instagram and links to us on Twitter. So that's the commercial. That's what I do, and we'll go from there. All right. So OTAs are happening, and the really neat thing is you're seeing some of these players interviewed. I got to see the Steve Avila interview from today. I don't know how you could meet Steve Avila, interview Steve Avila, and not be a Steve Avila fan, right? Now, I hope the Gentle Giant turns into a beast when Sunday comes. But right now, you could completely understand why the Rams had never taken, outside of Greg Robinson, they had never taken an offensive lineman inside the top 50. In fact, the highest drafted offensive lineman after Greg Robinson, number 2 overall in 2014, was Rob Havenstein at 57. And you can understand why they reached in and at number 36 drafted a guard like Steve Avila, because he really, really, really seems like a character guy as well as a heck of a football player. And when you're watching the interviews that I've seen with Byron Young and Kobe and Kobe Turner, you get the idea. The Rams drafted some high character guys, and so that's exciting to see. But all I know is after I watched that interview, I go, dang, I am a Steve Avila fan. And I'm also a Matthew Stafford fan. That if Matthew Stafford never played another down for the Rams, I would say that trade of 2 draft picks was worth it for him to get him. And so, I'm very pro Stafford. In fact, I will go on to say that I was wrong about something. After the 2020 season, I projected that the 49ers would make a deal and grab Matthew Stafford. They would trade for Matthew Stafford. You knew the Lions wanted to probably go a different direction after 12 years with him. It wasn't, they needed a fresh start. I think he wanted out. And I didn't even envision him coming to the Rams because the Rams were so socked in salary cap wise because they were still paying off Gurley and they owed so much money to Jared Goff. I didn't see it happening. But no, he didn't go to the 49ers. He went to the Rams. And I just like Matthew Stafford a whole lot. He won a Super Bowl for us. And so PFF has its quarterback rankings. And of course, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, even Lamar Jackson. All these guys are ranked way up there. But the people that are ahead of Matthew Stafford, who came in at number 12, was really interesting. At number 9 is Kirk Cousins. Okay? What has he done? Dak Prescott at number 10. Dak Prescott, right? If it's an important moment and if it's an important game, Dak Prescott's not going to get it done. And then why on earth would Tua Tagovailoa, why would he be ranked number 11 in the NFL? Has he done anything except collect concussions? I know that's kind of mean, but why is Tua ranked ahead of Matthew Stafford? I don't get that. And so that's why I was thinking, does Matthew Stafford does he play with a chip? Does he just assume that people are counting him out and then he comes back and just says, you know what, forget it, blanket, I'm just going to play? Or at 14, 15 years in the NFL, is he just like, I don't care. It doesn't make any difference to me. I know how I would respond, that even though I've produced, I would still have a chip on my shoulder. And sometimes I operate, from my perspective, I operate better when somebody says I can't do something. Okay, as we move along here in the second half of the show, great thing that I set aside this for a day like this when there's not a lot of action happening right now. We're still kind of building up to see what's going to break on June 1st because there'll be a second wave of free agency and cuts and signings that week. So I saved this and what I was considering, what were the things that happened that cemented you in as a Ram fan or as any kind of football fan? And I thought about it, and it wasn't every game, but there are just certain moments. And I was amazed that most of them were Ram home games. Most of them were on the radio. Almost all of them involved Dick Enberg. And so I went back and I looked at this, and November 5th, 1972, the Rams, a month earlier, October 1st of 72, they had lost to the Falcons 31-3 at Fulton County Stadium. It was the first time the Falcons had ever beaten the Rams. And so a month later, I remember coming home from church, because now that was a 1 p.m. game, and my brother and I listened to Dick Enberg. It's the first game I remember listening on the radio. We listened to Dick Enberg and his broadcast partner, Don Drysdale, because Don Drysdale had that long NFL career that made him a good color commentator for the NFL. But yeah, it was Dick Enberg and Don Drysdale, and the Rams beat the Falcons 20-7 at the Coliseum. And that was a moment that really drew me in. How could you not love Dick Enberg's voice? And then really the moment that I've talked about before, October 14th, 1973, John Hadle, Harold Jackson, 4 first half touchdown passes. They hold on. They beat the Cowboys 37-31 at the Coliseum. Dick Enberg calling out those things, those calls of Hadle going long to Jackson. It is embedded in my brain. And yeah, I will always be a Ram fan because of those moments. And it was interesting. A week later, we're in our back room. We're listening to Dick Enberg. Again, another radio call. And Fred Dreyer racks up 2 safeties against the Green Bay Packers. I think it's Scott Hunter and Jim Delgado. And that's when I, for a while, thought, oh, Fred Dreyer, he's the better defensive end than Jack Youngblood. And Dreyer wasn't bad, but he wasn't Jack Youngblood. And again, another radio situation there. December 22nd, 1974, I'm at the Coliseum, and I'm hearing Dick Enberg because people brought their transistors. The Rams beat the Redskins 19-10. It's the first playoff game I've ever went to. We're sitting in the closed end of the Coliseum, and the Rams beat the Redskins 19-10. That was the game where Isaiah Robertson had a 57-yard pick six off of Sonny Jurgensen. And it was just this beautiful, beautiful day. And there was an old Ram fan who was actually a big George Allen fan. And in 74, we listened to it on the radio. A few weeks earlier, the Redskins had beaten the Rams on a Monday night at the Coliseum. And then a couple of weeks later, they were back out for the playoff game because the Redskins were the wild card team. And there was this guy behind us yelling, "Allen's revenge, Allen's revenge. Allen's going to get his revenge on the Rams." And when Isaiah Robertson did that pick six, everyone started throwing their peanuts at him, and he got up and walked out. In 1975, I was up at my dad's for a Christmas break. My dad lived in Santa Clara, December 27th, 1975, and I remember being paranoid that I was going to miss this game, that I wasn't going to have control of the TV, that they weren't going to televise it. I didn't know how the rules worked in those days. But the cool part was they did televise it. I did. In a house full of kids, I got control of the TV at the age of 10. And I'm watching this game, and I'm watching a live football game from the Coliseum while I'm in Northern California. And that's the game where the Rams blitzed out to a huge lead. McCutcheon ran for 202 yards. Jack Youngblood had a pick six. Bill Simpson had a pick six. Harold Jackson caught a bomb from Ron Jaworski. Ron Jesse recovered a fumble in the end zone. Rams beat the Cardinals 35-23. And being away from home, watching that game by myself, with no one with any interest, again, it was a lock-in moment for me. And it was just interesting that a week later, I was back home. My brother had gotten tickets for the NFC title game, January 4th, 1976, and the Rams lost 37-7 to the Cowboys in one of the darkest days of my life. But here was the thing. If you could survive your team losing 37-7, not to the Niners or the Falcons or the Cardinals or the Redskins, but if you could watch your team lose at home in the game that would have sent them to the Super Bowl, in a game that they were favored, you can see them lose 37-7 and still call yourself a Ram fan. Even as that fourth quarter began, still dreaming that, hey, maybe they can pull something, right? It was just, I knew at that moment. I mean, I've known always, surviving the loss in Minnesota the next year, surviving the Mud Bowl the year after that, surviving the Cowboys in 78 again, surviving Eddie Brown blowing coverage in the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 14. You're cemented in. I tried to trade out the Rams when they moved to St. Louis, but I just couldn't. I was a Redskins fan. I was a Chiefs fan. But when they lost their big games, I was over it within an hour. I know I'm a Ram fan because when the Rams would lose, I went media dark for like a week before I was getting paid to do media. But I just didn't want to read the newspaper. I was just sick. Our house was like a morgue, and entire weekends and days were ruined when the Rams would lose. And that's how deeply we cared. I know it's probably immature, but it was just how we were built. All right, let me wrap this thing up here. On this date in 1975, the Rams sent center Bill Curry to the Packers for an undisclosed draft choice. Curry ended up retiring. He never played another down in the NFL, and so the draft choice was not exercised. But Bill Curry, Bill Curry is someone you have seen, but you just don't know who Bill Curry is. He was also the head coach at Alabama. He was head coach at Georgia Tech, Georgia State, Kentucky, with mixed success. But you see Bill Curry in a lot of NFL films stuff. He played for the Packers on their 65 NFL championship team. He played and started Super Bowl one and won against the Chiefs. So he won a Super Bowl there. He was given up in the expansion draft to the Saints. So not only that, he went from talk about the penthouse to the outhouse. He was traded to the Colts. Talk about good fortune. And he was on the 68 Super Bowl III Colt team that lost to the Jets, but he hung around long enough that he was on the Colts Super Bowl V winning team. And he's interesting because this was a guy that in 1972, he made the Pro Bowl, right? And it's January of 73, and he's at the Pro Bowl, and he gets a collect call, not a phone call. He gets a collect call from the Colts general manager, who had just become the Colts general manager, Joe Thomas, to tell him that he was traded to the Houston Oilers, who were 1-13, and I just thought it was like, oh my gosh, can you imagine not only getting traded from the Baltimore Colts to the Houston Oilers in the early 70s, but then finding out when you're at the Pro Bowl and via a collect call. Hi, this is a collect call from your general manager, Joe Thomas. Yeah, I'll take it. Hey, Joe, what's up? Oh, yeah, I traded you to the 1-13 Bill Peterson coached Houston Oilers. And that's why you see Bill Curry all the time in all these NFL film stuff, and you don't know who he is until you know who he is. He played for the Rams in 74, finishing up his career after a bad knee injury in Houston. And I remember specifically calling out his name, okay? Because we always sat at the closed end, and the closed end seats were about $4 or $5, and to come down lower was like $8. And this time, my brother got tickets to where on week 14 against the Buffalo Bills, we were going to see OJ play. We were on we were in the open end, the peristyle end, but we were also on the side where I guess that would be the south side where the media thing is, right? So, but we are literally like only 3 or 4 rows from the track, and we're there with the end zone, and James Harris do a rollout, and it felt like who sat in the rafters all the time. At that moment, it felt like James Harris was right in our lap. It was so we felt like we were so close. I mean, in those days, that track was you had a track between you and the field, then you had the sideline between you and the field. It wasn't as close as we thought. It just felt that way. And of course, as Jim Healy would describe, those seats way down low in the old Coliseum, you couldn't see any action happening at the other end of the field because the players on the sideline blocked it. So Jim Healy would describe those seats as of the horseshoe variety, and he was right. But as the players were warming up, Bill Curry was on his back, pumping his legs, pedaling his legs. And I remember thinking, I'm so close, he can talk to me, right? I'm going, Curry, right? And he wasn't a starter. Ken Iman was the starter. He was a center. And he didn't acknowledge me. My brother said, Joe, he can't hear you. And I'm thinking, I'm super close to this guy. Of course he can hear me. But again, I'm 4 rows back, full stadium. There's a track in front of us. There's a sideline, and then there's the field, and he's on the field. But that's what I always remember about Bill Curry. There you go. I said it. Okay, looking at this, just one other thing I wanted to add. When we were talking about projected Rams 53, on Cam DeSilva's list there. One thing I wanted to mention is that he projected the Rams 53-man roster. He did a really good job on that on Rams Wire USA Today. When someone does a good job, you should say it. But I thought it was also interesting. Rams had 14 draft picks, and of those draft picks, 13 of them DeSilva had making the roster, and that's what's going to be interesting, right? That hey, these guys might be good players. There's some of them that really might contribute. But when you've got 13 drafted rookies on the roster and maybe a couple of UDFs, undrafted free agents, it could mean for a long year. A lot of stuff's going to have to break right for the Rams to get anywhere near 500. Possible? Yes, but be prepared. Okay, that's it. I'm Joe Tarosian doing a different show today. Felt like it. I felt like I didn't talk enough current stuff, but hey, that's just kind of where we're at. I'm happy to talk Ram football. Please check us out, like us, subscribe us. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for all the encouraging things that we've heard and have been shared with us. So please leave your comments and we'll answer questions. And we will see you on Friday. I'm Joe Tarosian, and this has been RamView.